transition to Houston, and let's discuss the Houston Texans. They hired DeMeco Ryans. He's the former defensive coordinator in San Francisco for the 49ers. The deal is for 6 years, sources told ESPN's Adam Schefter. So DeMeco Ryans will be officially introduced as the franchise sixth full-time head coach. That happened earlier today. And the Texans, they become the first team in NFL history to have hired 3 consecutive black coaches. So my immediate reaction to the Texans hiring DeMeco Ryans was, I love this for DeMeco Ryans. I believe that DeMeco Ryans earned this head coaching opportunity that he's been given by the Houston Texans. I look at what DeMeco Ryans was able to do as the defensive coordinator for the 49ers this past season. That 49ers defense was the best in the NFL. They were top 5 in 3 out of 5 major categories defensively. They only gave up 319 total yards per game. That was ranked first in the NFL. They gave up 78 rushing yards per game. That was ranked second in the NFL. And they gave up 16 points per game, which was ranked first in the NFL as well. This was all while being led by defensive coordinator DeMeco Ryans. And I believe that he earned this job. And he already previously played in that Houston Texans organization. He has, I believe, the second most tackles in franchise history for the Houston Texans. And what he was able to do as a head coach before he became the 49ers he was the 49ers defensive coordinator since 2021. He was a inside linebackers coach 2018 through 2020. And as a player, he won NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, 2-time Pro Bowl player, SEC Defensive Player of the Year. So DeMeco Ryans knows his football. And I think this was a home run hire for the Houston Texans as well. And what also gives me clarity and stability for DeMeco Ryans, the fact that the Houston Texans gave him 6 years. The previous 2 head coaches in Houston, the Houston Texans never intended to keep them on board as their long-term answer at head coach. David Culley and Lovie Smith, they were never intended on being retained in Houston as their long-term answer at head coach. And I didn't like the fact that the Houston Texans basically hired David Culley and hired Lovie Smith just to fire them. They had no intentions of keeping them on board, but they hired them just to say, hey, we have a black head coach in place. But if you haven't given a head coach a long-term contract and given them the security that they need to be the head coach, why would we believe that you believe that this is your long-term answer at the head coach position? This 6-year deal that the Texans agreed to with DeMeco Ryans, this gives Ryans security, and this gives him an ability to come into Houston and change the culture and draft them a quarterback, whether it's C.J. Stroud, whether it's Bryce Young, and he'll have a quarterback who he can build around, and he can help elevate that defense. So this gives Ryans time to have this football team develop into being a contender. He doesn't have to be great his first year. And I believe that gives him the security that he needs to be the head coach in Houston. Also, when it comes to NFL football teams, no team in the NFL wants a head coach on their team that no other team wants. I believe that the Texans, they wanted DeMeco Ryans also because they knew other teams wanted DeMeco Ryans. It's reported that the Denver Broncos, their first choice for their head coaching position was DeMeco Ryans, not Sean Payton. I'm not sure how true that is, but that's what I heard. And there were other teams who were interested in DeMeco Ryans. And it's funny because it honestly translates to real life and even in dating. Women always say that they don't want a man that other women want. That's a lie. People love having someone as their partner that they know other people want. It's the same thing when it comes to trying to pick and choose who you want to hire as your head coach of your football team. So I love the fact that they gave him a 6-year deal. I love the fact that they chose him because they knew that other teams wanted him as well. And you got to remember, this Houston Texans football team last year, they were competitive last year. They almost beat the Dallas Cowboys last year in a game where the Cowboys had to win on a late game-winning drive. So they took the Cowboys down to the wire last year, and they were in games last year as a football team. I'm looking at their schedule. Remember last year, they almost beat the Chiefs in week 15. They only lost by 6 points to the Chiefs in week 15. The previous week is when they almost beat the Cowboys. They lost to the Cowboys 27-23. And they beat the Jaguars in week 5. And they lost to the Bears week 3, 23-20. But they were competitive in a lot of games this past season. Now, again, the number one priority for DeMeco Ryans is he has to draft his future franchise quarterback. Whether it's C.J. Stroud, whether it's Bryce Young, he has to maybe even like one of these other quarterbacks that's going to be in the draft this year. But he got to develop one of these quarterbacks. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance at being able to compete in the NFL. Look at what happened this past year in the divisional round of the playoffs. Look at the AFC bracket alone. In the AFC, you had Trevor Lawrence, you had Patrick Mahomes, you had Joe Burrow, you had Josh Allen. So in the AFC, specifically in the AFC, you got to have a quarterback to contend. But that's the NFL overall. That's the NFL overall as a whole. So I love this move for the Houston Texans. I love this move for DeMeco Ryans. And now that DeMeco Ryans is going to be the head coach and he is secure in his role, I believe now when he comes in, he's going to instantly command respect, and he's going to be respected because now players on that football team, they know he's going to be here long term. See, previous years when you had Cully, when you had Lovie Smith, you may not get as much respect from the players when they know that you're not going to be around for future seasons to come. Just like they may be gone in the offseason, they also know that their head coach more than likely is going to be gone as well. So you may not get as much respect from your players when you're not secure in your spot as the head coach. DeMeco Ryans is going to get his respect from these Houston Texans football players because they know he's going to be the head man in charge for future seasons to come in Houston. So I love this move by the Houston Texans. I think this was a home run hire, and I think this was a great, great move for the Houston Texans and DeMeco Ryans.